I've been thinking a lot lately about the gap between the kind of photographer that I am and the kind of photographer that I want to be. I think we all have this, we all experience this. We have an understanding of where we are, and we know that that's never where we want to be. We always want to strive and grow. If we don't have that, we probably shouldn't be doing this. I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself a creative. In thinking about my work recently, I've come to think about is like the different mindsets, the different types of photographers there are. And the conclusion that I've come to, at least for now, is that there are four types of photographers: the technician, the craftsperson, the creative, and the artist. While there are distinctions between those, it doesn't mean that they don't cross over. You can be an artist and not have all the technical skills in the world. You can be a creative and not be a master of posing. You can be a technician and not have an artistic cell in your body. The technician I view as someone who has a real understanding of their equipment, understands light, understands their gear, their camera, their setup, and is able to replicate something over and over and over again. You might just be pushing a button. That could look like high volume photography, school photography, mall Santas, Easter bunnies, things like that, where you have a defined setup, the set is set, the lights are set, the camera is set, nothing changes, and you're just hitting a button, maybe pushing out some images on a sublimation printer, making a ton of money in the process. But it requires a technician's brain. Another example of a technician might be an archival photographer at an art gallery or a museum. I know a couple of people who do archival photography work, and it is very, very technical. The lighting has to be perfect if you're photographing painting. Another one might be a headshot photographer. Headshot photography can just be very technical. And especially if you're producing the same looking headshots over and over and over and over, when I go in to a company and I'm shooting 15, 25, 50 headshots in a day, I'm just a technician at that point. Everything's set up. I'm just pushing a button and doing the same thing over and over and over. It's not creative. It's not artistic. You're just doing technical work. And that's fine. There's good money in technical work. Next, we have the craftsperson. And when I think of a craftsperson, I think of someone who's like really good at their craft. They of course, they understand the technical work. They understand their camera. They understand their lenses. They understand light. They can control all of those things. But they're taking that from the level of technician to the level of craftsperson. And I think of someone who might be an architectural photographer or an interiors photographer, portrait photography, boudoir, weddings. Those types of photographers are craftspersons. Acting headshots are the job of a craftsperson. That's what I do a lot of. I would consider myself a craftsperson when I'm doing that kind of work. So craftsperson will really understand lighting, they'll understand posing, they'll be able to take that work and elevate it to something that is remarkable, could resemble a piece of artwork that might be displayed in someone's home. Does not mean that their work is not creative or artistic. It is just not created for the intent of being creative work or artistic work. And you'll see what I mean in a second. Now, the creative, this is where I feel I personally lie. The primary job of the creative, in my mind, according to these types of photographers that I've developed for my own way of thinking, is that a creative's job is that of a problem solver. So when I get a brief from a company, it's my job to take the technical skills that I have, the craftsman skills that I have, and solve their problem. So the brief will outline what their problem is, and my job is to do something that is very specific to their needs that will solve their problem. When I shoot brand photography, this is what I'm doing. Commercial photographers are generally creatives. They're problem solvers. They're food photographers, advertising photographers, editorial photographers, branding photographers, academic photographers. They are someone who is coming in and focusing on a very specific set of problems and using their skills to solve those problems and provide results and a solution that fits the client's needs. Creative work can be technical, it can require craft skills, it can be artistic, but it is generally problem solving. And finally, we have the artist. When I think of an artist, I think of someone who creates work with meaning, intention, has a message to it. The work might be made to be displayed in a gallery or privately in a collector's home. But an artist is doing work with intention and meaning. That is my definition of what an artist is and what separates an artist from all the other work. Creative work is solving a problem. There's maybe some meaning in the solution, but the artist is saying something with their work. They're expressing who they are. They're expressing their ideas and their opinions through the work that they create. They're showing that to us based on what they create with their work. They're typically, not always, but typically photographing in a style that can be very clearly, visually their own. Now, a lot of the work that you do for yourself, for your personal projects, is going to be artistic work. It may not necessarily be expressing something, but that artistic work is going to get you commercial jobs. And so we do personal projects so we can catch people's eye, and then they can say, oh, we want to hire them to shoot this campaign that has absolutely nothing to do with the kind of work that I just loved from them. And that's typical, and that's fine. We're still getting hired and we're still getting paid. Now, in addition to these 4 types, we could look at them as mindsets. I think of them more as a Venn diagram, and there's areas of overlap between all of them. And I think there's also a 5th that we have to employ sometimes. And that is the mindset of a student. When we're experimenting and discovering, when we're in the studio, we are studying. We are being students of our craft, students of the technicalities of the new equipment we may have purchased. We may be experimenting on a technical level to create work at an artistic level. At different points in our career, we need to tap into those different mindsets. We might need each of them on a single job. And that's what I think is really exciting about photography, is that it's always a challenge. It's always, how am I going to solve this problem? That's why I consider myself a creative, because I'm a problem solver. And I think that's what's exciting about this work for me, is I want to figure out how to solve problems. And that's where I think I excel as a photographer, but also as a person, as a brain wrapped in a meat suit. So what I want to know, and please leave a comment below, is what kind of photographer would you consider yourself? And do you think there is a gap between where you are now and what it is that you want to do? And what is that gap? And what do you think that you can do to fill that gap, or to cross that bridge to get to where it is that you want to be? Your next step, your next level as a photographer. Let me know.